All right. Hello, astrology lovers. My name is Amanda Pua Walsh. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Astrology Hub. And today I am here with astrologer, author, and what was the other word? Teacher. Astrologer,
Sure.
author, and teacher, Bill Duvendack. And it's been a while since we have had the opportunity to connect him with Bill. He actually was on our very first summit 2 years ago, which feels like lifetimes and it feels like yesterday. But
Yeah.
thankfully, he is here with us today, and he is going to be talking about magic and how we can use the power of magic through this particular eclipse portal. And he's going to define what he actually means by magic. So we're going to get into the whole conversation. And before we do that, what I wanted to do was start with something because we had, we've been talking about this anchoring love global eclipse meditation a lot, right? It's starting next week. And we had a question come in from someone in the community, one of you, that said, "What do you mean by love? What are you actually doing with this, anchoring love thing? What do you mean by love?" And I thought, wow, that's such a great question. And I really don't want to take it for granted that we all have the same definition of what love is. I mean, we love pizza, right? We love ice cream. Like we've been hurt by love. So it feels really important to me to take a moment just to step back and define what we mean by love. And so I was reading The Alchemist, rereading. I read it about, I think, 10 years ago, and I was rereading it again. Have any of you read The Alchemist? It is such a great book. And if you haven't read it in a long time, I highly recommend rereading it. It's amazing how it landed on me differently. And I actually got to listen to it in Audible, and it's incredible to listen. So in The Alchemist, the main character is going on a journey to find treasure. And at the very end, he just starts to have all these realizations about what love is, etc. So this is a quote from the end of the book. And what he says is, "It's not love to be static like the desert, nor is it love to roam the world like the wind. And it's not love to see everything from a distance. Love is the force that transforms and improves the soul of the world. It is we who nourish the soul of the world, and the world we live in will be better. I'm sorry, and the world we live in will be either better or worse, depending on whether we become better or worse." And that's where the power of love comes in, because when we love, we always strive to become better than we are. And so that is really a great, for me, summary of what we mean by love. It is coming together to nourish the soul of the world, nourish our own souls, and in so doing, nourish the soul of the world and help to create a positive transformation. So that's it. It's really simple. I love how we, as humans, we love to complicate things, but it's really as simple as that. And what we're doing is we're using the energy of the eclipse portal, this massive, even if you just think of it in terms of the collective energy that will be focused on the eclipse. Even if the eclipse doesn't really mean anything for you in particular, the fact that so many people will be paying attention is something that we can actually leverage for positive change, positive good, positive transformation. So we'll be coming together 14 days in a row, starting on Monday, meditating together, seeding a vision for what we believe, what we feel we would love to see the world blossom and bloom into through this time of massive change and transformation. So you're all invited. It's totally free. It's starting on Monday, and I'll talk about it a little bit more at the end, but I just wanted to start there. You go to anchoringlovemeditation.com, share it with your friends and family. We want to get 40,000 people registered for this event. So it's a big, um, boulder that we're throwing into the lake, and we're hoping to have lots and lots of ripple effects. So without further ado, I would love now to start, Bill, with a question for you, which is around this idea of magic. So magic to me is kind of like love, like lots of different definitions, lots of experiences with it, positive, negative, etc. What do you mean by magic when you talk about magic?
I generally stick with Aleister Crowley's definition of magic, which is the art and science of creating changes in your life in conformity with your will. And another definition that is a very apropos one is one from Arthur C. Clarke, the science fiction novelist, who said that magic is simply using technology, and this is a paraphrase, using technology that is not currently understood.
Mm.
So when I'm working with magic, or when I'm talking about magic, thinking about magic, I'm looking at the manipulation of subtle forces in the universe to bring my reality in line with my spiritual vision or my will. I think
Okay.
it's important. Yeah, I think it's important too, for some context, that throughout the centuries, if we would time travel backwards and we would take just nothing more than our cell phone and a solar panel charger for it, that would be magic to more basic people. So it's completely subjective on that level too. But much like love, I also see it as a state of being. You are magic. You don't do magic. You are magic. You are working with creating your reality in line with your will.
And where do you, can you define will? I think that actually would be a second part to my question. So we know magic is working with technology that is maybe not as known or available to the whole, to conform. Is that the word you used, with our will? Is that?
Yeah, that works. And I'm glad you asked about will, because there's a lot of misunderstandings about it. Will,
Yes.
to me, and what's commonly accepted, is when you are here in physical incarnation doing what you know you're here to do. So it doesn't necessarily mean everybody can go out and be a magician. It simply means that when you realize what you're here to do, taking the appropriate steps to make it happen and be the best there is at it. For example, if you are 8 years old and realized you want to become the world's best banker, well, that's your will. Then continue forward. We hear about it all the time with professional sports and athletes, but we don't hear about it as much in other sectors of society. And the will differs from the desire, or from do whatever you want to do, because the will reminds us to stay on track for our own spiritual greatest growth and good.
All right. So when you're talking about will, you're talking more about, it's like purpose,
Yes.
that deep soul level purpose of why we're here, what we're here to do. And so then it seems to me like anyone on purpose, anyone on their spiritual path and in touch with that purpose, would be using magic whenever we are taking steps to bring that into reality. Is that
Yes,
a correct
yes,
assessment too?
exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
When one discovers their purpose, then they're by default practicing magic, because they're doing whatever they can to make it manifest in their life.
Wow. So essentially all of us right now that are a part of this community on some level we're all magicians by this definition, pretty much.
It, exactly. Crowley had another good quote that goes hand in hand with that, which basically is that everybody's doing magic all the time. So if you're going to be doing it, you might as well get good at it.
True. True. Okay, so Bill, let's talk about that. How do we get even better at being magicians, especially in this time around the eclipse?
Well, this is actually great fun, because for anybody that wants to experiment, basically the next 6 weeks or so is going to be a great petri dish to experiment with.
Totally.
We start off, of course, with Uranus finishing its stationing motion now. Magically, or from an occult perspective, Uranus corresponds to the higher self and the ascended self. So it's the higher mind, whereas our incarnated mind is the lower mind. So now is the perfect time to make contact with that consciousness. Then we have the full moon on Monday, which is getting overshadowed, pun intended, by the great American eclipse that's going on. But this is really where the alchemical processes begin to take shape. Because on this full moon coming up on Monday, it's all about internal epiphanies.
Mm.
So for some people, it's the hitting of the crap tolerance where they can't take it anymore. For some people, it'll be aha moments, but we're going to get inner planes gnosis during that time. Then a few days after that, when Mercury goes retrograde, we have all of these situations that are mercurial come up to readdress and deal with again. So when you step back and look at it, it's actually the execution of a karmic law, which is as soon as you have those epiphanies and you say, this is the information and the clarity I needed, I'm proceeding in this direction, the universe says, great, I'm happy for you. Here's a bunch of stuff that's undone before you can move forward, so clean it up. So then we have from Mercury going retrograde until the 21st to clean it up, because at the 21st is when we start getting external manifestations in line with the work that we've done between now and then. And the final grounding piece of the puzzle is the fact that Saturn makes a move shortly after the eclipse. So we're gonna have brought to our door situations of stability. We're gonna have brought to our door karma cleanup in preparation for the new moves. We're gonna have brought to our door the reminder of time. Like the American poet Jim Morrison said, no one here gets out alive. So we get a reminder of our own mortality and just how precious time is and why we should be mindful of where our energy goes.
Okay, so when did you say that is happening, that last part?
As Saturn on the 25th.
Saturn on the 25th. Okay, reminding us of time. Okay. All right. So it sounds like Monday to you with the full moon and the lunar eclipse is like the kickoff point to this petri dish coming into form. Sad.
Exactly. This is the time for all of us to receive our inner gnosis and our wisdom and our illumination from our guides, our teachers, ourselves. But that does not equate to physical world changes. It's the eclipse on the 21st that's going to bring those physical world changes. And we're going to be dealing with this pretty much up until the end of October, early November. And that's just the immediate pieces. There may be fallout for all of us that we're dealing with months after that, but at least by then, we will be able to look back and say, I got my information, I acted on it, or I didn't, and this is what I have to show for it.
And when you say fallout, what are you referring to? What kind of events or things are you talking about?
Yeah, like for example, if you realize you're not living in the city you want to live in on the eclipse on the 7th, then the eclipse on the 21st is what's going to trigger the opportunities for moving to another city. But it may take us a while to actually move. And then even when we move, it's still going to take some time after that to get acclimated to our new environment. So it's very much a process and a procedure.
Okay, so what would you recommend for us? So if we're magicians in this petri dish, what would be your, or we're magicians working with a petri dish, right? We're not in the, well, maybe we are in the petri dish too. But what would you recommend that we actually do with this opportunity?
Well, I think the first thing is to take a good, hard, honest look at ourselves this weekend and going into the full moon eclipse on Monday. We may think we know what we want, and then we get the information that we've been seeking, only to realize that there's a part of us that can't deliver on that. One of my favorite phrases to describe this over the last couple of weeks has been having the courage of your convictions. So you may get all kinds of information and epiphany over this weekend and on that full moon. And then when Mercury retrograde brings all this stuff up to resolve, if you turn a blind eye to it and say, well, I'm not going to deal with it, well, you just shot yourself in the foot. You dishonored yourself and your spirituality because you got what you asked for and you didn't follow through. So you're going to have harsher lessons down the road for it. But by that same token, we also realize our own limitations, which is a Saturnine correspondence. And we realize that maybe we should change our sight to something different, something smaller scale. more of the microcosm rather than the macrocosm. I see people like that all the time. They get what they want, and then when they have opportunities to move forward with it, they poo-poo it. And I've never understood that. You got what you asked for. What's your problem? And I'm very opinionated about it because it is the individual's problem. That's
Well,
dishonoring spirit.
yeah, and I think sometimes when we have goals and aspirations, we maybe don't realize how much work would be involved in actually bringing those forth. So I'm working with this man, George Mumford, who's actually going to lead one of the Eclipse meditation days. He's the meditation teacher for Kobe Bryant, for Michael Jordan, for,
Hmm.
elite athletes all over the world, Olympic athletes. And he said that he would watch Kobe Bryant off season, and Kobe Bryant wanted to perfect his 3-point shoot, which I'm like, oh, I hope I'm saying that right. But he wanted to perfect that. So he every single day committed to making 1,000 shots, making them. So that doesn't include the ones where it didn't go in. So every day. So he was talking about how much of a focus and a commitment and a dedication to this aspiration that he has, and that it's beyond what most people are willing to do, and that's why his results are beyond what most people's results are. So it always reminds me, I think of Kobe when I'm thinking of, is that what I really want? Because would I really want to put in the work required to get what I think I want? So I think that comes up for people too.
Oh, I completely
Do you see
agree.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of times on social media, you'll see memes going around, and the basic message is everyone wants whatever they want, but very few are willing to put in the effort and make the sacrifices to get it. And I think that's
Right.
really going to be a major theme of the next 4 to 6 weeks, is we may get epiphanies about what we think we want. Then we see the sacrifices necessary, and we either choose to step up and take them or not. A few years ago, I was speaking with a friend of mine when I was out in San Jose, California, and he gave me the best answer that I give people all the time. And I know it frustrates them, but it's true. And he learned it in AA. If you want what I got, you got to do what I do.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think that's a big lesson if people understand the principle.
Yeah, and you use that word sacrifice. There is a definition of that I have, that I love. It's like the actual root of the word, which is to make sacred. So to
I
sacrifice
love
something is
that.
to make sacred. So if we're sacrificing for our purpose, we're actually making sacred our purpose and that journey and what's required to get there. So I think if we keep that in mind, it makes it feel less of this like, oh, I'm like this, martyr having to give up all these things. And it's like, no, actually, I'm making sacred this thing that I really believe deep in my soul and my heart is the reason why I'm here. Is the reason why I've incarnated.
Exactly, exactly. And by making those sacrifices, we also put more of an emphasis on the treasure that they are.
Yes, very much.
It's not as pedestrian. When we get a
Right,
chance to indulge, we can say, oh, wow, this is phenomenal.
right. Yeah.
Whereas before, it'd be like, oh, we got to do this.
Okay. All right. So Tim has a question from the audience. He says, so the eclipse would be ideal for manifestation, right? Can you address that again?
Yeah, the eclipse on the 21st is great for manifestation, external manifestation. So lay the groundwork with the eclipse coming up on the 7th. You know, take a real critical, analytical look at what you think you want and why, and then look into different people that have tried to go the same route, read up on them, hear about their trials, hear about their tribulations, hear about what they had to sacrifice in order to get there, and ask yourself if you're willing to do the same. I was in a forum earlier this morning talking about this eclipse, and one of the things I mentioned is that this whole month is a heavy emphasis on Leo energy, which is all about the big L love and the little L love, like you mentioned at the start of this. But with all that emphasis on Leo, it's all about, there's also a grand fire trine that's in the air. So it's all about seizing the fire, bringing down the flame, ascending up to those finer planes through force of will and through energy. You know, nothing happens if you're just sitting on your couch. You've actually got to do the work. So when we're talking about manifestation with the 21st and going forward, pop open your rulership book or the book of rulerships, look at the correspondences for Leo and incorporate a lot of those into your will and into where you want to go. Leo is creativity. Now's the time to look for creative problem solving techniques for challenges you may have in your life. Leo is optimism. Adopt an optimistic personality. Leo is hobbies, and it's also stress relief. It's creative self-expression. So make sure you've got your hobbies in place. You've got to have that outlet when you're so focused and you're so driven to get that energy out. You know, when you're pursuing your will, it doesn't mean abandoning the things that help you de-stress. You still need those to be psychologically healthy. That's been talked about for decades. So another part of Leo is working with the sun. Spend more time outdoors. A correspondence of Leo is children. Maybe contact your inner child or start spending more time with children if it's appropriate. Let your own inner child out and play as a reminder that you're not a curmudgeon-y adult.
Okay, lots of very useful tips there for tapping into that Leo energy. What are you feeling for the next, so we have this eclipse portal that we're going through. What are you seeing for after the October, November? Because we talked a little bit about October, all the way through October, November. What are you seeing to be ripple effects that continue?
Well, I think it's going to be very, very interesting because when you look at a lot of the planetary ingresses over the next several months, and even going forward a year, we've got this eclipse pair. And then in 2018, Saturn leaves Sagittarius. So Saturn enters into his own sign, which is going to be a good thing. So a lot of people are going to feel more relaxed. One of the keynotes of Saturn and Sagittarius is not feeling like you can speak your own truth. So a lot of that weight's going to be lifted. But honestly, I'm going to break it down in between national and international here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, nationally, we're going to have the fallout because of how this is interacting with the various United States of America charts and key figures in government and society. So we may have our hands full with riding that tidal wave while still trying to accomplish our true will. So we're going to have our hands full on that level because while we may be okay with things, we may end up being a pillar of support for our loved ones that are not as blessed with the same things that we are. So nationally, it could be a very intense time. Now, of course, some of that ripples out to the international stage, but one of the things that changes when you look at that international stage is it starts getting very nuanced with the charts of a lot of different countries. There was an article I read a couple of years ago talking about the fact that I believe it's Aquarius at 14 or 15 degrees has always played a significant role in the national chart of Poland. And there's something similar with Russia at particular degrees. Well, this eclipse coming up on Monday is right around that degree point. Mm-hmm. So while we may have our hands full socially, particular countries are going to have impacts happen on them. But in a lot of ways, it's going to be a good thing. You know, when you look at your natal chart, and this is something you know as an astrologer, when you look at your natal chart, you always look at the eclipse that happened before your birth as part of the prenatal epic. Well, we're kind of in the same boat here. While this eclipse itself is very, very powerful, a couple months from now, we're going to be able to look back and say, oh, all of this has come from this eclipse. So then we know what to expect a few months going forward. Now, a lot of times, because this is so late in the year, a lot of it's going to be over and done with. And I don't mean that to trivialize it, but rather this eclipse in America, this eclipse happens in the 21st. The federal budget starts getting set in September. Then we're into fourth quarter of the year. So it's all about the holidays. You know, that's a script that's already written, no matter what happens with key situations in our society. So we've kind of got it scripted through the end of the year, but other places do not. With this much emphasis on Leo energy, and this is a broad sense that is going to apply anywhere on the globe, it's also going to be about the conflict of the individual ego versus what's best for the greatest growth and good of groups of people. That's one thing that I have not seen any astrologer talk about, which is the fact that all this Leo energy is absolutely fabulous for creativity, but it also means people's egos could get the best of them, or people making decisions that are narcissistic and me, without putting it into context of the greater whole, and realizing at the end of the day, all of us are just a flipping number. We got to come together. We got to have a come to Krishna meeting on this planet and realize we're all on this big rock together. Where are we collectively going? And that's the opportunity for people that work not just with Astrology Hub, Kepler College, my astrology stuff, but also people that are proactive with their spiritual growth, because they're the ones that are going to be able to step to the front and say, we've been saying inclusiveness all along. Let's do this.
Exactly. That's exactly, I mean, it's exactly why we're doing what we're doing, but you're right. It needs to be done in so many other arenas. And I think it is. I think a lot of people that would consider maybe themselves light workers are, and maybe they don't use that term, maybe they use something different. They feel the importance of leadership shifting and changing in big ways. I've mentioned on a couple of these calls, I'm co-hosting and co-producing an event called Servant Leadership, which is all about this, what we're talking about, using the leadership abilities to serve the whole. And where I have heard about it, first of all, I want to clarify, I'm not an astrologer. I don't know that
Really?
I'm definitely not. No, I'm not. And that's
okay.
one of
I stand corrected.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm sure it's an assumption that a lot of people have. I just wanted to clarify that because I know how amazing and deep and rich and nuanced and how many years it takes to be able to call yourself an astrologer. And I'm certainly not that. I'm a very big astrology enthusiast, and I love holding this space for astrology wisdom to come into the world. But what I have noticed is that that conversation about Leo, all the Leo energy, it's come into context when we talk about the Leo Aquarius axis shift. I've found that a lot of astrologers are bringing in that part of, but it needs to be to serve the greater good. You know, that's the point of this Leo Aquarius balance, is that it's not all Leo and it's not all Aquarius, but that it's using that Aquarius emphasis on the greater good and humanity to, use your leadership to serve that end.
Exactly. And, that's a big part of it. We've got to look at decisions that are best for groups of people, but still take care of ourselves. I have seen too many people through the years that will put the needs of others first above themselves. And if you're a parent, that totally makes sense. Don't get me wrong.
But Bill, even as a parent, you still have to think about yourself and your needs, or else you just burn out. I mean, and then you
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. It's just a fine tightrope to walk.
Yes, it
You've
is.
got to take care. For parents, it's a tightrope. For other people, it's real simple. You take care of yourself so that you can take care of others.
100%.
And I think that's what's getting lost in translation there. You're not taking care of yourself for the sake of taking care of yourself. You're taking care of yourself so that you can maneuver into a position of giving back to those that don't have what you do.
Exactly. Yeah. And you talked earlier about us potentially needing to be pillars of support and strength for our families, for our communities, for our country, for the world. And I really do feel like so many of us have essentially been in training probably our whole lives, but it's accelerated training in the last 5, 7 years, and that we're ready for that role now more than we ever were before. And yes, it will be key that we continue to nourish and take care of ourselves and to be supported by each other. I can't tell you how fed I am by the inspiration and the feedback and the love and the outpouring that comes from even this community, that it helps me to keep going. So we all need that. And we all need to find those places where we do receive the same level of nourishment that we then can share with everyone else. So, okay, we have a question from Evelyn. She says, can you restate the relevance of sacrifice and or making sacred to magic? How does this come back to our conversation around magic?
Now, this is something that you get two or three people, different people in a room. You're going to get two or three different people that have different opinions. So take it with a grain of salt. But if you use something a lot of times, it doesn't mean as much to you on a regular basis. And by making it sacred or by sacrificing it, you kind of step back and say, I'm choosing to indulge in this. I'm going out of my way to make this extraordinary. Now, I'm very conscious of this, and I'm very aware of this because there are things I do all the time that I do treat as sacred. But the reason for that is I enter it from a particular ritualistic perspective. So it is sacred on that level, but not everybody's there. Some people throw words around like they're nothing and then wonder why somebody doesn't have the same reaction that the person that they told that to previously had. So when you sacrifice, you're basically saying whatever it is that you're sacrificing, you're putting it on the shelf to only pull it out and use it at certain times. Now, as this applies to magic, every time you pull that off the shelf and bring it up to you, it's a mental shift in consciousness that you're doing something exceptional or you're doing something different. You're doing something sacred, which is the same reason that a magician wears a robe. You can do magic, ceremonial magic, ritual magic, just dressed like this, but your brain's like, oh, hey, this is just another day-to-day thing. When you put on that robe, you've got that muscle memory in your consciousness that says we're about to do something sacred and we're about to do something special. And when that consciousness shift happens, it opens our mind to higher vibration.
Totally. I can I tell you a quick story here?
Yeah.
Just this morning, my daughters, and they had a friend over too. They walked out wrapped in their blankets, but they looked like robes to me. They looked like, regal robes. So I started calling them, I said, oh, my lady. And it was acting like they were queens and princesses. And all of a sudden, just this robe, just having it around them, we tied them a certain way. And now all of a sudden, these girls are transformed into queens and princesses. And of course, I'm the servant because I wasn't in the robe. But this is so true, and that's where the ceremony and the ritual, that's where the power comes from. It's like we notify our souls that we are acknowledging that we're entering into sacred space. Now, of course, we're always in sacred space, but there is that acknowledgement, which then just elevates. And I love how you say makes us more open to the divine intelligence. I think that's is what you said, if not paraphrased. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any other specific tips you want to give us for working with this idea or concept of magic now in this time?
Well, number one, stay humble. Don't let your ego get the best of you. That's a big one right there. Keep it in check. Number two, practice some self-compassion. If you get your epiphanies with the eclipse coming up on the 7th, the Mercury retrograde brings you opportunities to clean things out, to prepare for what's going to manifest after the 21st, and you realize you bit off more than you can chew, then do a more formalized prayer or blessing or ritual to the universe to basically say, I screwed up. I don't want it that big. So don't hate me. I'm still going to do the best I can with it. But then the second half of that is don't self-loathe. Just say, okay, I thought I wanted that. I was wrong. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. It's a growth opportunity. I'm going to change my will to what's practical and what I can handle. You know, it comes back to the Oracle of Delphi, know thyself. So as people are opening up to these energies now, it's finding that fulcrum point in the middle between taking care of the self and taking care of others. But then by that same token, if we fall short, we should practice compassion. And if we exceed beyond our wildest dreams, we should make sure that our ego doesn't get the best of us.
Oof. I want to like write all that down. That was some really amazing and potent wisdom that you just shared with us. I just
Well, I'm
wanted
glad
to.
you like it. It's a good thing we got it recorded.
I know. Yeah, we could easily go back and put that on a nice little meme and remind everybody over and over. Okay, so to do that, I mean, I really feel again, and Bill, I would love to give an opportunity for you to actually, why don't we do that right now? Can you tell us if people are interested in working with you or being a part of some of the events that you offer, how would they learn more about you?
Easiest way is my website, billduvendack.com, 418ascendant.com. I'm all over Facebook like a rash, so I'm pretty easy to find there. LinkedIn, plus Google, pretty much most social media is pretty easy to find me. My friend Donna even says you can go to Google and type in Bill Astrology St. Louis and it'll pop me up.
Nice. Very good. That's a job well done there, Bill. Okay. All right. So as Bill was speaking, I was again reminded of the space that is going to be created starting on Monday, which is great because we're going to be able to go internal. And it really is a acknowledgement of, okay, we're entering into sacred space. On Monday, we're entering into sacred space with the full moon, lunar eclipse. And like Bill said, this is our opportunity to go in and to receive the guidance. And then throughout the entire 2 weeks leading up to August 21st, we'll have lots of opportunity to then self-reflect and remove from our field what we need to in order to bring forth the vision that we're catching. Whether or not, like you said, whether or not, Bill, we decide to adjust the vision a little bit based on what's being asked of us, that's going to be an individual response and we will find out. But just having the place for us to come and do this together is what I feel so passionate about right now and what I want to just extend to you, to all of you. I'm sure most of you are probably already joining us. If you are joining the Eclipse meditation already, just give a yes in the chat. I'd love to see how many of you are. And if you are, tell us why. You know, why are you called to it? Why do you feel like this is going to be something that's going to serve you? Because again, this is about serving, nourishing ourselves so that we can be those beacons of light in the world when the world needs it. And we don't know when that'll be. Maybe that's soon. Maybe that's in a long time. We don't know. But there is this opportunity to come together and really harness this light, talk about our own leadership capabilities, how that wants to come forth in order to serve. So that is the key about this Leo Aquarius axis shift. And it's amazing because I've gotten to listen. I'm not an astrologer, but I probably, it would be hard to compete with the amount of hours I've spent speaking with astrologers, especially about this particular event that's coming up. I was thinking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I've had so many conversations about this. And it's really in my body now. You know, it's no longer this conceptual thing. It's like I'm feeling the energy of what's coming forth and what we're all going to need to navigate it as gracefully as possible and as powerfully as possible. So sign up, anchoringlovemeditation.com. Hope to see you there starting on Monday. If you can't make the live event, you can always tune into the recordings. Bill, is there anything else that you want to, and share, please share. Again, I've explained this. Greg Braden's mathematical equation, the square root of 1% of the population is what's required to create a real impact and shift in consciousness or a shift in events. And he did the math. It's 8,000 people for the whole entire planet. 8,000 people, that's it. That's required to make an impact. And so we've done a lot of events and we have found that 20% of people usually can show up live. So if we have 40,000 people sign up, about 20% are going to show up, which gives us that 8,000 people number. So again, whether or not you can show up live or you're going to tune into the recordings, either way, I know it's going to have an impact. But if you can show up live, and if we can get to that 40,000 number, we will be making a massive call out to the universe. And even if we don't hit 40,000 people, the fact that you're showing up makes a difference. So thank you so much for that. So Bill, is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we close up here?
Not really. You know, I don't know who coined the phrase initially, but the phrase I've seen going around social media lately is this idea that this eclipse pair is a lion's gate.
Mm.
And the reason that I like it is twofold. Number one, in magic, when you're doing rituals, you've got the opening rituals at the beginning that set your sacred space. Then you have the rituals at the end that close it out and reset it to a baseline. You can look at these two eclipses like that. It opens up with the eclipse on the 7th, and the formal part of the eclipse stops on the 21st. So you can use that as a psychological model that basically turn 3 weeks, about 3 weeks right there, into a very living ritual. Now, the second thing is more along the lines of be bold. Something I learned when I was young, a person that never had a chance never took a chance. Fortune, the motto of the SAS in England, fortune favors the brave. This is your time. This is your gut check. If you've been wanting to do something, flip and do it, because you might not get another chance. Or if you do, it may still be a ways off. And if you go forward and it doesn't work out the way you want it, don't, pardon my French, don't bitch and moan. Look in the mirror, said, I did this, and now I'm going to get myself out of this. And pick yourself up and move forward.
I love that, Lionsgate. It's amazing. I actually haven't seen that or heard anyone say that specifically, but the Lionsgate, that is perfect. And especially with a lot of the astrologers focusing on the Regulus conjunctions, that brings the lion in even more.
Exactly. He's the king of the jungle, and many people have said this planet's a jungle. I love the Greg Braden material that you referenced. And for those of you that want to explore that a little bit deeper, also look into the 100th monkey syndrome.
Yeah, can you tell us about that? Because I'm not very good at explaining that one, but if you could tell us, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, basically, and this is real paraphrased and dumbed down, so do your research. But there were, I believe, anthropologists that studied a community of monkeys on an island. And there was another group of anthropologists studying a group of monkeys on a different island. Well, as the anthropologists with island number 1 would introduce new things to the monkeys, what happened over an extended period of time is the monkeys underwent a changed consciousness and a changed behavior based on what the anthropologists interjected into their communities. But much to the surprise of the anthropologists, the monkeys in island number 2 exhibited that same change, shift in consciousness and shift in behavior, even though there was no quantifiable link in communication between the two groups.
Wow. Okay. And it took 100 of them to make that impact across.
Exactly. This is part of where Greg Braden got this from. The 100th monkey syndrome was, I think it was executed in the 60s or 70s. So it's been around quite a while. It doesn't get a lot of exposure, but that's where he gets a lot of his material from, and other people too. And there's a deeper magical teaching that I think would be appropriate to kind of sign things off with. That which is dead, so polarized opposites, can be resurrected, but that which is changed forever.
Very, very wonderful. Thank you so, so much, Bill. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for joining in the magic with all of us here. And it's just been a real treat and pleasure. So check out Bill's work if you're interested in learning more and working more with him. And join us next week for the Global Eclipse Meditation Series. We could be the 100 monkeys.
Exactly.
I love it. I
Thank you
love
for
it.
this opportunity and blessings of success with that. Let's rock this.
Let's rock this. I love it. Okay. All right, everybody. I will see you again in like an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to be on with Natasha Alter. She's going to go through all of the Pluto generations and how this eclipse is affecting the different Pluto generations. So this is going to be really amazing and some great specific information for you. So please join us at 4 o'clock Pacific. All right. I have to do the math real quick in my head from Hawaii. It's hard with the time zone thing, but 4 o'clock Pacific. We'll see you then. Aloha, everybody. Thanks for making astrology a part of your life. Can't wait to see you soon.